Good afternoon. Spectra7 is listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange under the ticker symbol of SEV, and also on the OTCQB under the ticker symbol of SPVNF. My presentation today may contain forward-looking statements. Spectra7 was formed in 2010 and headquartered in San Jose, California. We've been serving Tier 1 customers such as Molex, Tencent, Foxconn, Sumitomo, Dell, Samsung, and the like. Our analog semiconductors are embedded in the connector of a copper cable to enable high-speed connectivity. Now, being 18 years in the industry, I can tell you that analog semiconductor is the holy grail, and it's because it's very difficult to do. For the last 12 years, we've been serving the consumer connectivity market, and as well as AR, VR. But what's going to really drive the growth for us is going to be data center connectivity market. Because our technology enables copper to transmit in a very high speed, is also applicable in the automotive, switching systems, and 5G infrastructure. So what is $377 billion? Well, that happens to be the amount of money of CapEx that needs to be invested by the hyperscalers, those defined as data center operators with more than thousands of servers, that needs to be spent by 2026 to meet the YouTube generation, big data, AI requirements. And of course, they're motivated in looking at the high performance or higher performance of the switches and servers that is serving and putting into their data center. And with that, the data rate goes up, and here comes the opportunity that we have. Passive copper, if you could imagine, thousands and thousands of servers sitting in racks in a data center have been connected with just a copper cable with two connectors at the end. But with this high density of servers, it's going to require a higher speed, looking at about 800 gig, and also the density is doubling from a 56 gig per lane to 112 gig per lane. And with that, passive copper, just regular copper, could no longer do it. It is very short, very thick at this point. At 800 gig, it's only at 1.5 meters. And if we think about the top of the rack installation with all of these racks sitting in the data center where the servers and switches are connecting, they need to be about 3.5, 2.5 meters. So with that, we're looking at the growth of Spectra7 to take advantage of this market. Because again, our technology is an analog chip that goes into the connector of the copper cable to enable high-speed transmission. So what about substitute products? Passive can do it. Well, the substitute products, as you can see over there, active optical cable, fiber optics, as you all know, can do kilometers. But they're using a laser going through a converter in order to transmit. Also, active electrical cable, which use a digital signal processor to process the signal, both of which can go the length, a lot longer than is needed for a top-of-the-rack installation. But the problem with them is higher cost, higher power, higher latency, and having to be configured and not a plug-and-play solution at all. Here we show you at 100 gig between AOC and AEC and Spectra7's active copper cable, there really isn't that much of a power usage difference. But then as the data rate goes up to 400 gig and 800 gig, you can see the optical cable used 28 watts per cable versus active electrical cable using 20 watts. Well, Spectra7's active copper cable used a mere 2.4. Not only that though, take a look at the latency. An active electrical cable will require a digital signal processor to process that signal, and therefore having a latency of 250 nanoseconds from one point to the other, whereas an active copper cable using our analog chip would have less than 1 nanosecond of a latency. Not only that, on a CapEx side, buying an AEC is going to be much more expensive. This is a situation where data center operators are not spending more to get more. they're actually spending less on the CapEx to get more performance, on latency, lower power. And of course, the biggest driver for savings is going to be power. Well, how much is that? In a typical 100,000 server data center, you would see that per cable, we're looking at 20 watts versus 2.4 watts. Well, it really adds up for a year of 3.5 megawatts of electricity or power savings. And at $5,000 per kilowatt hours, that's $17 million of operating expenses savings, not to mention the savings on not having to cool the data center running an AEC. So how big is this market? According to 650 Group, by 2026, they expect 2/3 of all of these interconnect to be active copper. And from a revenue perspective, it's going to be exceeding $3 billion by 2026. Well, the $3 billion include all of the silicon content of data connection within a data center. So in our estimation, our segment addressable market is about $1 billion conservatively by 2026. So with this traction that we are anticipating, we believe that our operating model could definitely be achieved with revenue growth at 60% over 4-year CAGR, a gross margin of 60 to 65%, EBITDA margin of 25 to 30%. All of this is enabled because we have a fabless manufacturing model, which is very capital light and definitely scalable. So in summary, why Spectra7? Is because we have a highly differentiated solution in this fast-growing market. Again, by 2026, exceeding $1 billion. Our customer has a great value proposition in using our product that would save them CapEx as well as OpEx. With our 3rd generation active copper cable solution, we believe that we could earn the trust as well as the business of the hyperscalers. And remember, 12 years in the business, backed by 55 US issued patents. We have been serving tier 1 customers, and we believe that even a minimal market penetration is going to deliver high level of revenue growth and therefore shareholder value. Thank you. Is there any questions? Hi. So I think the question is, what is our intellectual property and how does our technology differ from other folks who are also using active copper? The technology we have is in signal conditioning, and we're backed by 40, like I said, 55 US issue patents. All of this is not only in the patent itself, but also in the know-how in the systems that actually make our chip work within the modules of a copper cable. So all of that, of course, have to come with years of experience working with copper cable manufacturer and making it work for our customer. As I've mentioned, we have had 2 generations already in the active copper cable when we deliver that for Tencent. Well, first is the 25 NRZ, and then the second is this 56 gig per lane, 200 gig cable. How does our technology differ from other ACC approach? Well, if they are using an analog approach, similarly, they may be able to use an analog chip to enable the signal conditioning through a cable. But they may use a different material, they may use a little slightly different approach. We believe that our technology is very encompassing for our intellectual property and that we're definitely the first mover in this space. Question? The question is, could we explain what active copper is? It's really a phrase that I have coined, we as Spectra7 have coined many years ago as we pivoted into this market. As you can see, it's really this market is coming now. And what we call active copper in this case is basically taking a regular copper cable with the connectors and then putting a chip in it to enable it to go much faster in its speed. And in our case, not only that, making it ultra thin. So that's an active copper cable. Now, some other folks may say, and if you go onto internet, you type in active copper cable, the optical cable folks also call themselves an active copper cable. So I understand the confusion. 650 Group also talk about active copper as any copper cable with a chip in it. So in the case of active electrical cable, in some cases that's in the same category as what the 650 Group is considering as an active copper. In all cases, the copper cable, which is ubiquitous, which is abundance everywhere, easy to get, in order to make that transmit in high speed, particularly at 800 gig and above, it really needs to have a chip or some kind to help boost the signal. And in our case, it's analog, and it only used 2.4 watts, unlike those folks who use a digital signal processor that use 20 watts and more. The question is, how far space is the chip within the connector? So just think about this connector being so tiny is going to be based on the density of what you need and how fast it could go. So, but it's all going to be within this little space. And ours is tiny. Ours is a chip level package. In fact, we were talking about some of the operators in North America are looking for 1.6 terabytes. So if you imagine 1.6 terabyte within this connector, if you're doing 100 gig per lane, you need 16 of them. What happens that our chip is so small it'll fit? So the first question is, what other market can we go with the technology we have? Again, we're able to work with any copper cable to enable it to be have high speed. Of course, when I say all, I didn't mean all, but a lot. So the areas where we really shine is, for example, HDMI 2.0. We really dominated that market, but it's not a huge market. It's a $2 to $4 million revenue a year kind of market. Of course, that's driven by 4K TV. 8K is coming out right now, so there is a demand for an upgrade of our technology at 2.1. So that's one area we can go. AR, VR is, we announced earlier in the year that we have won the top game console manufacturer, in going into production. So that has been something that we've done, for Oculus before Oculus was acquired by Facebook, and then Facebook did away with the tether wire. But now with the content-rich delivery of 5K resolution, you definitely need to have a cable that could transmit that very rich content over a very quick, long cable, and therefore we're able to win this product to go into production. So AR, VR is another area. I share with you about our long-term revenue goal of 60% 4-year CAGR. It did not include any upside other than the existing business we have there. Other areas, automotive. Again, earlier this year, we shared with you that we won the design for JVC Kenwood, a Japanese OEM for automakers in Japan. That is also in production. It only is, our chip is enabled in the cable for the infotainment portion of the automotive. Again, if you take a look at cars, lots of cables, copper cables in there. The other one is the switching system. If you think about switching system, it needs to transmit high speed. As we're talking about what the data center operators are looking for in their equipment is to make sure that it could transmit really fast speed of data. And in this case, switching system is relatively small, and they have a lot of noise as they're transmitting. And our chip, again, could help with the speed and the noise. In a 5G infrastructure, we talked about an opportunity is actually still in progress for it being evaluated, and that is where a distributed, disaggregated chassis, which is like a pizza boxes sitting next to the tower and transmitting between the tower and that distributed, I guess, portable pizza box, data center transmission. And that also require a wire that's going to be able to connect between the tower into the pizza boxes. So those are areas, some of the areas where we could also grow into. Thank you for that question. Oh, the second question is on the balance sheet. What do we need for a balance sheet in order to win? So We thank, again, our shareholders in putting in the investment that they did in last October. We have taken a lot of that cash. If you take a look at our balance sheet and just moving it into current asset, paying for supply and prepay. As of the end of the quarter in June, we had 2.6 million in cash, and currently we anticipate that this will be something that we will need until we get to profitability. In between now and then, there are a couple of things that we could do. Of course, when you take a look at $2.6 million, is not a lot, but a lot of the current assets, AR, inventory, prepay inventory, are going to convert into cash. And then the other thing we just did, as you know, and thanks again for the support of our investors, we're able to refinance our debt that came due back in July. And with that, we have convertible debt, which is a modest amount of $6.8 million on the books until 2024. So that has been a very valuable relationship for us to be able to have the convertible debt that allow us to also use traditional debt to supplement any working capital needs. So as of this point, I think we're all set with that. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much. Have a great day.